So I was moving kind of rapid fire through these, since this was like labbing. So I wasn't letting a lot of the animations play out in the early game, but it's like the previous clear where we're depending on Celestia and Greg there with their less than 100% hit rates, which, you know, standard 4-win frustrations at this point in the game. And that's why Jean rallied Celestia. Because even with all that, she still only had a 93 against a general. Of course, Greg needs to combo that with his 86.
Leave it to me.
I'm pretty sure we had to reset that at least once, too, for each of them missing while we were doing the run that had a death. Or working toward it.
Let me at him.
Yeah, I guess it's worth noting that, like, Louis starts with similarly bad hit, but because he's not a Xeno unit, we're able to fix that. So he's got supports there. He's got hit plus 15, so he has 98 hit against those Bonites that are decoyed into fighting him. Which is why he doesn't cause resets.
Let's be careful. I'll manage.
And of course, Chloe there can cause a reset if she misses the Raging Storm. Thankfully, that only ever happened once. But hey, it's an 86, so it's not. It's great or good hit rate, but not. It's far from perfect, basically. But we enhanced the hit as much as we could on that with the crystals we had, so... And the comical rescue for one space for Saline there. So she can hit her 2 97s. And Celestia stealing Greg's Excalibur and not letting him fight again. I guess I should mention that we also had a chance to mess it up with the Wyverns too on turn 1, but because we rolled favorably and got a crit instead, Yuna could just stood around and twiddled her thumbs. But we needed her to rally this turn, so that's why I didn't move her out anywhere else. And the big rescue from Greg here to drop us in range of the sniper. Admittedly, that was discovered accidentally. Like, the rescue is kind of strange in its priorities. So the fact that it just throws us out into the water in range of the sniper was a happy accident, I guess. Because we want to pull and injure as many of these enemies and move forward as quickly as possible. Which is why I just ignore Fagato there. He has too much health. And I'm willing to let Nil pick up the extra revival stone if it means not having to deal with, like, I think it's 180 hit points.
All right.
For similar reasons, that's why we pulled Tamara early and lured her into the kill zone, because we don't want to deal with her shenanigans once we get to her corner. Welcome back, Knight. And that unfortunately does mean that Nil picks up Sandstorm, which is one of the more dangerous ones for him to pick up. Actually, it's probably one of 3 that are the only impactful ones, but it's something that can just instantly kill someone. So I actually planned the final strat around that happening. So we get a Camilla here, and I was kind of frustrated by this. Because for those of you who've seen the previous attempts, like Camilla can basically solo a good portion of the northeast portion, like Diamant's part. So she's kind of wasted as a one-turn decoy here. But I guess she still at least helps a bit, I guess, but just one turn of her kind of sucks. Also, speaking of sucks, missing that general kind of sucks, but just hitting the one time is enough. Especially since, even though Camilla is not used at her best here, she still deals 44 damage to Elcrest on the counter. And there was some danger of not getting the damage, because if Elcrest had Luna'd because Camilla's a fire, she just would have died. But because she did hit, this opens things up a bit. And we are dealing with somewhat sketchy hits again, too. Well, I guess definitely sketchy hits, like 71s for this Camilla's axe. So that's why we rally. It's not completely necessary to hit him there, but you know, it's kind of nice if we do. We see some RNG here with the House Lords. Because if Chloe rolls Dimitri, she just one-rounds Alcrest, full stop. But since we got Edelgard,
You picked me.
we have to have someone else clean up. So Fram doesn't need to hit them, but of course it's nice for her to hit those there. So we're just going to get her charged, so if she hits, that's nice. But there's plenty of backup there. Most notably Nell. Nell has like a 96 on him with the Fell Spark or something like that. And healing Saline is, even though that general's picking up Bush Avoid, we got pretty good hit here. This was a little bit of a mistake not moving Fram down though, because we could have easily had 100% hit rate there. I just didn't position Fram quite properly. Who in the Xenologue has S rank and staves? No one on this team. You have to go far enough to get Hortensia. And since this is done before completing Chapter 7, Hortensia is not an option. Yeah, I don't think anyone else gets S staves. Oh, actually, I guess Pandreo should have it because he'd be a High Priest with upgrade staves. Or, no, wait. I think High Priest might have S staves by default. It shows you how much I use High Priest. But I think Pandreo is the only other option. And I wasn't sure about running speed res here, but since we were low on bond fragments back when I did the inheritance, I decided not to inherit from Crom. By the way, that cataclysm was because we need to injure that wolf. We're moving Celestia up to pull the Elysian Sisters. And that cataclysm ensures Hortensia doesn't attack Celestia. Which is great because Celestia would get for Wizard Crit. Which I guess should surprise no one because Celestia gives everyone listed crit. But it helps lower the risk. But anyway, back to the speed res inherit here. I wasn't sure about it, but when you couple it with actually having Camilla equipped and Camilla's axe, those sages actually don't do that much damage. So it's great for just being able to run out and face pull them, like we're doing here with the Bolganon and the Thoron.
Me? Okay.
It also makes it so that a lot of the mage cannoneers are just like, nope, don't want to shoot at you because you got 25 plus res. I think we still enemy phase skip here, but Quan basically kills all those wyverns because despite him picking up tiny amounts of magic, just for the way that the Xenologue rolls stats here, with Excalibur he's still strong enough to just flat one-shot those wyvern riders. And because of Flare, it means he can just one-shot them infinitely. So this here is a risk of suffering from success. We don't want to crit there on that 19%. If we do, we basically lose the run. Because what I'm doing here is I'm using Louis with the Piercing Glare to trick the enemy into thinking this is completely impassable now. But if we don't injure something for Hortensia to heal, she just attacks Louis and ruins all of it. So yeah, the name of the game here for several of these turns is just distract Hortensia. And Quelly here is showing why she ended up as an MVP in that end scroll earlier. There's a lot she can do with the Edelgard emblem. Just pull out Failnaught and murder things, pull out Ariad Bar and murder things. I think I was thinking a bit here. So I was considering... I think I was considering how I was going to break through the choke, but without messing up positioning. Alright, so we dodged there, but Thorn would have actually done a lot of damage to us. And we want to face pull the hero, so that's why Jean's just hanging around. In case we need the recover, but since we didn't, he just uses Physic and moves down. Yeah, I'm basically positioning in a way here to force Greg's next rescue to not put stuff too far to the left. And that's why he picked up the pool too. Without something like Byleth and Seedall, this gets kind of hectic. So in place of dancing to move characters further, we just spam AoE rescue. So I guess here we get the demonstration. Oh, I guess I did skip that. Forgot about it. Yeah, there's that first demonstration of what happens every time something flying looks at Clan. It explodes and gives them full health. So those wolves all decide, well, if we can't get through here, we're just gonna go back up and go around. And funnily enough, the Mage Knights, or at least some of them, it's interesting that they divide up, but there's a couple of Mage Knights there who decide, hey, we can actually do damage to Louis, so let's go down this way. So they waltz into the kill zone. Unfortunately, it's not as many as I'd like, so once we actually get to the Diamant choke point, we're gonna see 2 extra errant Mage Knights that are gonna cause problems. But it's better than dealing with Hortensia and Ivy later. Like, this whole middle part here, where we're expending a lot of resources, is to set up so that we don't have to deal with the Illusion Sisters later. Because they are very bulky, have wonky AI, and go all over the place with their 3+ range attacks, so... I decided I didn't want to deal with it anymore, which is why we went to pains to early pull them with Celestia. So yeah, speaking of Celestia, this is the most dangerous stuff here, and why Yunaka rallies her to make at least the first fight here somewhat safer. We're going to be facing a 3% crit and need to hit 274s. Because the Excalibur with Divine Speed just exactly one-rounds the Wyverns. And since Chloe's busy up here helping, she can't go down to fight the Wyverns there. And with no land and Clan out of Engage, he can't really help with that section. So yeah, compared to the previous clear where I was a little more cautious about usage here, I'm just blowing any engages that are necessary to get through this choke point. We do Smoke Vein here because it keeps that Tomahawk hero from putting an axe in our face. And we'll keep doing that. Because we like being me and enemy axe heroes. You may notice that despite rescuing Louis, we're actually not gonna advance him too much here too. Even though he would be helpful fighting our way through this choke. And I guess more on that once we get to the next turn, but basically we're setting up Louis and Ete here to help Clan and Dusky. So that there is just more of Clan murdering Wyverns. Because Soren's pretty good at that, as it turns out. So we got Hortensia and Ivy bearing down on us again here. And thankfully Celestia didn't explode and didn't miss. The movement for this southern set of reinforcements can be really erratic, and I'm not quite sure why. So this was actually kind of lucky having the one go up towards Clan, because it's basically divide and conquer where I can run out there, kill the corrupted wyvern, and be in range of one of them, and only one of them. Otherwise, Celestia has to play a lot more defensively, and it can become a problem. So you see here, we're setting up the smoke again, and then we're trying to block a bunch of these spawns. Because if we get cannoneers close to us, it actually causes a lot of issues. The damage output can be quite high. Just because their accuracy gets much, much better if there are a few tiles closer. And since we get 2 out of the closest 3, if we don't bother to block them, then it can be it can be lethal to our squishies. So we do what we can to take some of the RNG out there. Chloe was just poking that general, but I guess the crit was kind of nice for enabling breaking through more easily, but really I just wanted to poke it and then move her up to facepull the hero. There's another, I think it's another tomahawk up there. It's something with some kind of ranged weapon. I think, yeah, at this point is when I realized that I needed to take this a little bit slower to make sure I didn't throw. Because the Celestia setup especially is... Well, it's something where the odds are in our favor, quote-unquote, but it's something that can also easily go seriously wrong. So it's one of those cases where I definitely needed to make sure I didn't waste it. And I think I was considering going for Seraphim there, but it was definitely not necessary.
I can't let him down.
As shown by her 11 sword kill. And for those who have seen the queer with a death, this is me summoning, I think, about 2 turns earlier than usual. But I really want to break through here, and Robin's nice, but I was kind of disappointed that it wasn't flipped so that Robin was the decoy earlier and Camilla was pulled here. You can see that Robin's accuracy is not great. 78 is very sketch overall. And sure, he's got a ton of power, but it's that thing where I just would have preferred Camilla's accuracy more. Even though she has like 10 less magic than him or something like that. She's also faster, but most of these enemies are slow enough that Robin doubles them anyway, so it's not really a problem in that regard. But yeah, getting rid of that spear halberdier there is big. Because they let me aggressively push everyone else in here. There, I think I'm counting out. Yeah, I'm counting out the tiles to make sure that I put Louis in a place that is going to allow Etier to canter to be beside him, or I guess 2 tiles away from him. That crit from Kwai was relatively lucky. She could have just finished him off herself next turn. But it frees up an action. There's scariness there. So without Yunaka's rally, it's a 6% chance for Celestia to just implode. And then of course, Those are the slower ones, so she had double 76s to hit, but it's still not great. And that's not even the last combat. So this is the key change here, and I was especially not wanting to mess this up, so I was counting tiles again, double checking, making sure that I'd done all the calcs correctly. But when I was previously labbing, a problem was that Hortensia and Celestia, or not Celestia, and Ivy had one turn too many of free movement. So they could easily just like end up in that lake where Chloe is and escape getting killed. Which is obviously really bad if we went through all that trouble expending resources just to kill them and then failed to kill them. No, it was just Madeline trying to get in a bit of extra damage, but it didn't really matter that much. Her getting injured is also a little bit advantageous overall. Because a big way for us to refill engage meter when we're not around pools is just to spam Fortify. Since every unit healed by it restores an engage tick. So it's one of those things where we actually want to get beaten up at times. And since Madeline's not usually doing anything high risk, I do some things like that. So here we're decoying Louis for a play that's going to come after this. But Etienne had a full Book of Worlds here, and we're using that to freeze Ivy, and then the death effect poison strikes Ivy. So even if Etienne had whiffed that, the 10 damage is enough to distract Hortensia. And then the freeze prevents Ivy from going anywhere herself. But of course that's a very dangerous situation for those three, so we rescue them out. And it's very specifically positioned so that I can get Louis into range of the Wyverns. Because we want to clear those and make some forward momentum. And compared to the previous clear or other attempts, this is also me. Like, I really wanted to use Smoke here, but then I realized I could just use Dark Inferno and be fine. So that's what I do to keep their ground troops from getting too close. Because we do need to distract them and or sandbag them for an additional turn after this. And the flames are basically just what we needed.
I'm getting hungry.
And here I advanced Robin as much as I could because he's gonna run out soon, like despawn, so in anticipation of the approaching enemy getting into his range, we just want to jump in and do as much damage as possible and we don't have to worry about him dying or anything because he's just an expendable summon. There's some frustration here with Chloe. Because in the Queer with a Death, we actually got Dimitri on the roll before we engaged. And in engaging the House Lords locks it in. But unfortunately, it feels kind of bad saying this about Quad, but unfortunately we got Quad, who is not as helpful. Because if we had the Shield Gambit there, we could have sat in the lake closer to the Cannoneers, and they would have preferred to attack Chloe over Dusky because much lower res. But then the Shield Gambit would have just negated all their attacks. I guess also higher hit rate because they wouldn't have to go into the flames to target Chloe, but instead we're getting shot at a bunch here. Thankfully our hit rate, or their hit rate's quite low. And you see there Hortensia getting distracted and healing. Which is great because she was actually the one who was screwing things up the most in previous labbing. And once again there's Alessia cheating death by not getting 6% critted. And hitting both of her 76s. So that's when I knew I kind of had the... not quite the God RNG, but very good RNG. Since if we did had God RNG, we would have also had the Shield Gambit. But as it turns out, it's fine enough to work around. It's just... it kind of prevents Chloe from doing her job for a bit here. Because everything is a little bit too dangerous. Although... I say that, but we're gonna make a play that's a bit ballsy with her. Which ends up being safe just because we've got spare rescues, but there are a lot of threatening enemies. I guess remember those errant mage knights I was talking about? They're now right above that lake. And one of them has Thoron. So... if left unchecked, they will cause lots of issues. This is one of the heavier think turns for me.
Right?
There are a lot of wyverns here, and then the mage knights on top of them. And the mage knights also cause problems where, because the forwardmost one has Thoron. So we run into the issue of, if I try to attack too much here, and get shot by the Thoron and the mage cannoneers, people can start dying. And we also have to somehow get forward momentum, or keep forward momentum through these wyverns, in addition to all this artillery fire from the left side. There's some annoyance there for me, because the spear is too heavy, so we don't actually double. So I ended up having to count out the rescue distance again. But I guess once again, because of spare rescues, and I think I had 4 charges left? Maybe 3 in the Queer with Deaths. I decided I should be a little more aggressive about using them. especially for a problematic choke point like this. So we're taking a few lower hit chances here, mostly because we know we can have Saline provide backup if we need it. So at this point, I decided the Thoron was too dangerous to let live, so Chloe takes it out, and then we have to rescue her out afterward. We do similar here. We need to hit one of those 81s. Thankfully, we don't have listed crit there, because it would be one of those cases where if we could crit and did crit, it'd be suffering from success. So at Mage Cannoneer, we just want to injure and not kill. So that it once again distracts the Hortensia. Keeping with the theme of constantly distracting Hortensia for the map. Louis gets that pull because normally I'd give it to Greg, but the way I saw it, with the pacing and how much he was needing to just stay back and heal, I decided it was probably better for Louis to just get faster armbands back. And here's this, again, Quelly out. Robin's positioned to get rid of the Bolganon Mage Knight. And he actually takes quite little damage, because a lot of these 5-star summons are pretty busted in terms of stats. On top of being an expendable unit, so Veronica kinda strong, just saying. There's a big fortify to get Greg a ton of meter back. Which, of course, we'll need, because, once again, we're doing a lot of Micaiah rescue spamming. Celestia, I leave in range of one Mage Cannoneer, because there's no way that it kills her, so I'd rather have her closer to the action than avoid being targeted by just one Cannoneer. And this can be a little bit spooky, just because all those Cannoneers are a little bit close and they can potentially focus fire someone. Although the AI has weird priorities and tends not to. Robin versus that Mage Knight there is relatively safe. The 78 is, of course, not great hit rate, but since he one-shot it, he only needed to hit exactly one. Now, you see Hortensia and Ivy line up to die alongside a number of other stuff there. Including one of the Corrupted Wyverns, which is great. Because miasma can threaten instant death for about 90% of the team. So Robin hit rate striking again here. Looking at the combat with Celica. Because unlike the Mage Knight, he would need to hit both there. And another problem here is that there's four physical enemies that'd be in range of where I'd want to move Louis. And Decoy only absorbs 3 attacks. So at this point, we absolutely need to kill Celica, and we need to kill one of the physical units. I'm not sure what I was considering with Koi there. I think it might be in if she could have done anything to Celica if I unfroze her. So I went ahead and attacked in melee there with Robin under the assumption that we'd only hit 1 out of the 2. And that way then Yunaka could have run up for the finisher. But Robin decided to be a champ and hit both. So that left just the one little problem of these physical units still hanging around. So Louis is taking a pot shot there. I mostly just wanted to set him up for 2-range enemy phase, but he's moving away. We might as well attack the enemy. Try to do damage. Thankfully that 70 did hit, so it put us in greater advantage. There were definitely backup plans, but obviously we get way better forward momentum if we can hit some of these. I'm leveraging clan support here. Unfortunately not 100%, but kind of as good as it gets, so that... If we had missed, that crit would have just flat cleaned up that Wyvern. No problem. Not something we were banking on, but it's just, we take those, basically. Whatever. If we get good rolls, then, yeah, take advantage of them. And once again, Saline had the option to bail us out if Plan had decided to whiff. Or Louis had decided to whiff, and then we potentially needed Clan and Saline to do it. Plenty of combinations there, in addition to, because Celica got destroyed by Robin, Yunaka was potentially free, etc. And unfreezing Koi would have let her attack from over the water, too. So chances are the focus fire would have just killed that wyvern full stop. And with Chloe not needing to do backup stuff. Or like backup damage basically, not the actual backup mechanic. I had to think about what we could do to optimize remaining actions here. It kind of comes down to just placing most units at the edge of the enemy range. And then probably attacking this Tomahawk hero who's gonna die anyway in order to just sneak a bit of extra engage, get herself charged up. And I do similarly with Celestia. Poke him once. Doesn't matter if it hits, since you just making the attempt gets us the engage meter. I skipped that animation, but Nil goes nuclear and like destroys half of his most dangerous forces. That one wyvern attacking at 2 range is nice. They do have a tendency to do that, but I wasn't really sure. And here we get a demonstration of why it would have been way better to have Camille there, because that second wyvern's miasma wouldn't have affected her. Which means she could have potentially countered Diamant and taken away one of his health bars, or close to. Alas, instead, Diamant just kills Robin. Although, I guess it wasn't a total waste there, because it burned his Book of Worlds so that if I needed to have someone take a hit, they wouldn't get lit on fire and frozen. Which is kind of a big deal. It's not something I leverage here, but this choke point is always very messy, so it helps to be able to consider different options. And this formation here is actually quite nice. Because normally Martha's in the lead of everything else. And typically I want to use Madeline with Ice Breath from Tiki to control him. But that means attacking into a Divine Speed Rapier, which takes away like 90% of her health. So this Tomahawk hero kind of just screws enemy Marth over. Madeline doesn't have great hit rate here, so it's nice to see that 70 hit against the hero. I'm actually not 100% sure how the breath works. I don't know if it rolls the same across all targets, or if it rolls them against their individual void. I assume it's their individual void, in which case their chances of hitting Marth there were kind of low. It's usually around 35 listed hit. So that's some big extra damage. And I guess Leaf and Roar are out there doing some silly things too. It's such a juicy formation. You can see me lining up that Cataclysm there. But I need to be sure that I can kill Leaf, is the thing. Because the Vantage Lightbrand is... I know it's a meme for players because it's useless for players for the most part. But for the enemy, just getting vantaged by that 50% crit rate against Res when a lot of characters are just gonna straight up die from a crit. It's pretty spooky over here. So there's a lot of considering my options. But, yeah, I guess I'm not confirming it there just yet. Yeah, I'm lining up to see. So if I blow the Cataclysm and the Hazards Unite, then Leaf just dies. And that's what I go for. That's not too bad, because basically 3 emblem attacks, or 2 emblem attacks gets us 3 kills. And they're on several problematic units, because Cataclysm also bypasses Roy's holdout. So we've effectively saved at least 2 actions at this point, just by combining all that. And here I was basically saving Ete to lock out Diamant. With that first level Book of Worlds. Because he is surprisingly dangerous for being a physical unit using Veronica. Or at least not one setup like the same way I set up, say, Vander. That what was it, 83 miss there? Was kind of frustrating. But thankfully Yunaka didn't miss hers against Marth. Like, Marth was frozen, so he wouldn't have been a threat, but he also has unyielding. So if we'd let him live, we would have had to deal with about 20 more hit points, which is generally not cool. So I am kind of running low on actions here, and I don't want... I don't want to end up having Madeline get miasma and then tomahawked, or have that happen to Dusky, so... Since the Wyvern is far, or too far away to do anything about, we're targeting the hero. But unfortunately, our hit rolls are not going so well. And I get sick of that and just blow them up here. Because we probably could have taken another shot with Greg there. But I think I was considering whether or not I might need him to go after the Wyvern. since I wasn't sure if I was going to use Louis' Engage here.
This isn't so bad.
But because of those misses, I think I just decided, no, we're not doing any more potentially missing attacks. Just going for the Armad's kill. And we're doing my favorite staff trick there with Cantor. As long as we got charges to waste, we just use it to get +2 move. So one thing I could have done there is equip Seraphim on Celine before doing the Warp Rag, which would have let her just counter kill that Wyvern. I found out later that that was not. It would have actually been the suboptimal choice, hilariously enough. We'll see in a second here why. Or potentially several seconds. I think I'm checking our hit rates here. You may notice that Diamant's Void is just high enough to be annoying. Pretty much everything doesn't have 100% on him. That's really not great if you consider that every hit increases his damage through Reprisal. This doesn't get us the best boost, but that Wyvern ends up being perfect fodder for Celestia there to set up friendly boost. I think it's notable there that like Nell only has an 85 with that Fellspark, when it's quite possibly the most accurate weapon that the Xenologue characters have access to. I guess if she'd been in a position to get caught on friendly boost, she'd have 100, but its damage also isn't incredible because Nell's mixed defenses cause problems. So thanks to Celestia, Madeline now has an 80%, or I guess 80 Fates are in hit chance. And because it's a great weapon, Reprisal actually isn't a threat to Madeline. So that's why I go in with her first. Otherwise, if I chipped with Clan, then she'd just die.
If I can, I shall.
And Salie, it's kind of annoying that she only has 90 here after all that effort, but you take what you can get, and 90 in Fate's Arden isn't too bad. And Koi here at the 98, because, yeah, Koi is just really good at not missing most of the time. It's one of those things where everyone always makes fun of luck, but her somewhat overkill luck helps a lot in dealing with the enemy avoids here. And of course, we got these heroes, which I'd like to be chain pulling at this point, but Louis is a little far from the action, unfortunately. So we're gonna let Yunaka do some face tanking. I think for that Greg heal, we didn't need the engage. I was feeling a little nervous about not anyone who wasn't topped off at this point, so... that smoke was actually a little bit of a mistake. Nothing fatal, but... there's nothing those enemy summons could have done to actually get out of the death zone here. So really, I should have just run north and gotten a couple extra movement. So I guess not getting hit there is nice. Since we're not really looking for additional engage charge at this moment. And we just want people to be at high health so that they can do stuff. I think here I was considering how much space I would have with the big Micaiah rescues to get everyone forward. After using more more of the rescues to break through Diamant's choke point. I was actually somewhat having second thoughts. I wasn't quite sure. This hero didn't really allow us to push up too hard anyway. So as you can see, I'm trying to leave that path open so that Louis, or this hero, will ram into Louis now that he's decoyed. I wanted to take advantage of that crit there, but I wasn't really willing to expend additional resources to do it, especially since that hero was just gonna ram into Louis anyway, so... The end goal was to get Yunaka a bit of extra movement to be further up there, and that's what happened. And Greg really wasn't far enough up to go too hard on the rescue anyway. And Quan there doing the bolting was just, again, getting him +2 movement. I guess there was a 50% chance of just killing the hero, but it's not a great chance, so... Wasn't banking on it in any way.
Yes.
I am keeping everyone somewhat packed together here, so that Greg can do a rescue next turn. Yeah, I guess I Revival Stone Chloe, but it doesn't really come into play for the most part. I guess it gave me options, so I can consider things down the line, but... The way I tend to do things with Chloe, it, it's never really practical to be banking on a Revival Stone. Still, it's nice to have there.
Let's be careful.
It's another great crit for Yunaka there. So I wasn't sure if I'd have to retreat her or heal her, since she definitely can't survive getting hit by 2 wyverns. And that the one in the back is covered by a whole lot of other stuff, so there's not really any safe way to pick it off at this point. Especially since one of the last things we'd want to do is aggro Saline up to the choke point. That would definitely be a potentially run-ending mistake. Yeah, this one. So this bolting was just a pot shot for fun, but so it turns out Clan rolled that 8%. And we take those. And I gave that pool to Madeline because I wanted to have the Ice Breath available, and I know that Louis can just easily charge up through combat at this point. Whereas Madeline risks
Let's go.
risks death as she fights as much stuff as Louis does. And manually charging with her would just be really slow in general if we're having to play around that. So with all that extra space created, I did the big Micaiah rescue.
I'll manage.
And just using Chloe to get that far back Wyvern out of position. So if we let it take a pot shot at us, then it'll just outrun Saline's coverage entirely. It's definitely a case of still not out of the woods yet. But, those Wyverns are lined up quite nicely for Louis to just sit in their range. But first, we need to get rid of the corrupted Wyvern. So Koi does that and picks up a bit of extra charge. And we never really had the cleanest opportunity for it while we were in that alleyway of death right before Demon's choke point. But Louis with the Silver Lance plus the Rally and Divinely Inspiring actually lets him just straight one round these Wyverns if he hits both counterattacks. So that's what we're setting up here. It's not as clean as one-shotting with our mods, but we can't be constantly engaged, so it's kind of the best we have. But with Dusky adjacent and the Rally, his hit rate goes up quite a bit.
I can fight.
So it's not like he'd be you'd have to be exceptionally lucky to hit both attacks. It's that hit rate's getting up there. Now the trick is we want to advance as much as possible. We also don't want to block the sides of Louis. Because even though we have pretty good odds of hitting both counterattacks on all the Wyverns, we don't want to get complacent. So the idea is to leave the 3 spots adjacent to him open so that the Wyverns can come in and attack him regardless of how many died or survived. I'm pretty sure I'm looking to see if I can give Greg like the closest premium spot, because he only has one more turn of Makai after this. And not everyone's going to be on the platform and might want to be rescued much further in. So definitely still a little nervous here. These next few turns are crucial. And I absolutely don't want to throw the runaway at this point. I guess it's also worth noting here, because I've been a little more conservative with my rescues, we're actually about a turn or so behind in terms of movement compared to, I guess, almost any previous attempt, including the one that succeeded with a death. So I'm fairly certain normally I'd be Chain Guard or Shield Gambit pulling Saline here. So that makes things a little bit claustrophobic. Because we have to be very mindful of her threat range. And of course presents the problem of dealing with her over the next couple turns too. But I was purposefully setting Etier up over there. I wasn't 100% sure just how much of an advantage her placement would be, but as it turns out, I guess it's still not the greatest because the Wyverns covering Saline are a bit spooky. But we're basically set up to Book of Worlds Freezer. And the main advantage of that is that Saline will keep armor equipped instead of the swapping to the fail not to attack. Which is great because fail not has boosted crit and 3 range, so makes it so if we let her equip it, then suddenly Thorn poking is not an option. I guess and or longbow shots, but it's funny, a lot of what I do here with Etier, I'm not really counting on her landing the hits. It's more like charge world, Book of Worlds up, do longbow stuff with it. And I guess if it hits, cool. If not, whatever. We're letting the books do most of the work. And of course, we're continuing to abuse Assign Decoy on Louis. There's just really not a lot of ways to keep the enemy at bay on this platform. So the manipulation from being able to decoy is pretty huge. And Hector is very necessary for safely disposing of them. So that's why I engaged and went for running Armads instead of keeping the Silver Lance equipped, which would have been reasonably safe, but we're absolutely looking for kills here. So once I'm safe on the platform, I've decided that almost anything goes for rescue. I pretty much want to save at least one charge. But I'm fairly confident from doing the previous victory that I have the pattern down, so... once again, I'm expending them for the sake of safety here. Because Etier is fragile enough where if those corrupted wyverns decide to focus fire and rolled lucky, she would just die. So that's why I got rid of the one in the middle here. And unfortunately, we can't canter out of Bail Note range there. It's one of those moments where if I wanted to, I probably could have just expended the Revival Stone. But that also would have allowed Saline to equip Bail Knot, which would cause more problems with killing her. So I decided it was worth using a rescue charge here just to not have to deal with that. So we basically use 2 rescues to get Huawei to make things safe for us. And it's not the first time in this run where that's happened. Wow, but somebody needs 260 points now. Oh, and I guess Jade finished. Nice. Well, there's still some time in the challenge, so if anyone hasn't spent their points yet, it's up there for grabs. If you want to be a hero. I think I was a bit torn for movement here. Because we need to kill Saline, but and her goons, I guess. But Nil's not that far off of summoning stuff on this platform too. Like a couple turns, so we don't want to go too far to the left. And we want to make sure we're moving south at some point. Oh. And those reinforcements here is actually just like major murderous grin moment for Madeline. The only question being whether to do the ice breath on the Swordmaster or Saline. As it turns out, I went for the Swordmaster. Look at that sweet double kill there. Just bye-bye Corrupted Wyverns. No chance for them to counter or snipe anyone. But yeah, since the Swordmaster is dodgier, and priority is on killing Saline to stop her from using all her emblem stuff, maybe just crowd control the Swordmaster to go after Saline. With, of course, some Saline on Saline violence. Annoyingly, Houses Unite doesn't quite kill there. I'm sort of trying to figure out how to not have to commit Dusky to this, but in order to do that, I'd have to be using up a number of other resources. So definitely a lot of considering my options here, again, because I don't want to throw the runaway. And even though we're on the final platform, there are a lot of Corrupted Wyverns still just covering 3/4 of the platform. And that's before accounting for coverage from all these other units. Enoch is doing some nice clean chip damage here. However, I might be mapping out a different scenario. Because we're still having to contend with two health bars on her here. I guess that's one thing there that finally for sure leverages Etier's strength. Since, once again, a lot of my actions with Etier up to this point are just Longbow Book of Worlds shenanigans. So there was a very slight chance of the engage Rollin missing there. But I figured it was worth it in order to not have to potentially commit say Celestia to trying to Thoron poke with garbage accuracy. I think I was considering setting up smoke there. In order to allow the fail not to one round. But I didn't want to end up smoking, say, Madeline. And letting the Wyvern deal a... Well, I guess it wouldn't be in the Wyvern, it would be in the Swordmaster to deal more damage. But I suppose the Wyvern Miasma makes that kind of a moot point. But at least doing it that way allows me to save the Houses Unite and keep Dusky from going too far left. So once again, we're leaning on Decoy with Louis here. We're basically trying to abuse it as much as possible while Louis is engaged. Particularly since Armad's with Impenetrable is actually super crazy on an armor. Because Impenetrable gives it 50% extra instead of 30% extra defense. Which also counts stat base from, say, equipping Armads for +5 defense. So Louis ends up with so much defense that most things can't damage him, which is normally kind of bad on Maddening because the AI is programmed to ignore stuff like that, but then Decoy is programmed to override that. So that just makes it so that we can force a bunch of enemies to do 0 damage and eat Armads. And on top of that, The defense is high enough where he's basically the only unit in the party here who doesn't fear get into combat after a Wyvern Miasma Sim. I guess Madeline is somewhat fine to a degree too, but she takes a lot of damage, whereas Louis just mostly doesn't care. Alright, good night, Tail Saga. Thanks for watching. Yeah, have a good sleep. So here's the demonstration. Louis takes that 13 damage and Miasma. But even with Miasma on him, these guys don't even do any damage. And that Swordmaster just suicides. It was a little spookier for Madeline there. Where if everything had connected, she would have survived, but with only like 20 hit points. Thankfully, there was nothing to speak of with crit rate on her, which is something that should probably be surprising considering her luck is Garbo. And she doesn't have access to supports. Because Louis' luck is similarly bad, but he can just hang out next to Dusky for a little bit of bonus dodge. Yeah, it's for a similar reason that in addition to the inheritance, Louis can actually get good hit rates. But Madeline's usually stuck with maybe 50 listed if she's lucky. Which is why I had a bit of a disdain for her as a unit. After we finish this and we're using all the wins and Nell and Rafal and the campaign proper. She needed a lot of help. And even with that help, there were a lot of times where she still couldn't have perfect hit rate, but I suppose at least it wasn't 45 to 50. You really ruined for Lapis there, eh, Travolcal? You're trying to make it up for her after the Lapis tests? And so that Armad's murdering the corrupted Wyvern, very satisfying. There's no kill like overkill. You see, with Louis, we're trying to take advantage of decoy yet again, especially against that general. Like, we definitely want to get rid of the Wyverns, but the general is also annoying. Even though it's stationary, it covers some parts It makes an already claustrophobic fight more claustrophobic. So whatever we can do to get some damage on it so we eventually finish it off. So once again, getting a little bit nervous. I know I'm gonna have a bunch of those flyers that just got summoned, or yeah, the griffins and whatnot that just got summoned are gonna be coming in. So we need to deal with them, but Nil's gonna jump onto this platform quite shortly. And the first set of summons are gonna be on the south side of the platform, so we have to get down there. Because the previous failed attempts I got to this platform way back when I was not going for the Ivy and Hortensia kills. Things just got really, really bad if we let him summon down here. And even with Ivy and Hortensia taken care of, it would still be bad to let even half of the summon show up. So Nil is still at least conveniently killing some of his troops, but as you can see, there's still 5 flyers hanging out on the left side. And the summoning is happening next turn. And I guess the funny thing is, there were times during the Xenologue where I went back and forth on whether inheriting assigned decoy was the right choice. 'Cause that was 1500 SP that I could have put somewhere else. But I think considering how much utility stuff I just ended up having ETA do here, it was the correct thing to do. I guess it didn't necessarily need to be on her, but I think because she's usually not capable of doing things on the front line a lot, with her speed being as low as it is and her hit rate being fairly sketch quite often. Plus, I guess the combination of being able to Sigurd over and decoy Louis like that, it all just kind of worked out. And I think if I thought her combat was more necessary, I probably would have given her hit plus instead. But all in all, I think her stats were just not really in a good enough place for me to consider really leading into her combat. So there's definitely some hesitation there in how much I should commit north and how much I should commit south. I think I almost got it right. I think the biggest toss-up is that Chloe could be helping with literally any task, and I only have one Chloe, so it's just like I stuck her in the middle so she can flexibly move wherever, but I'm having a tough time deciding where she should go. And of course, I need to deal with these wyverns up top too. I can't just let them pincer me with the other wyverns south. Particularly since Louis' engage is running out, and blocking the summons are gonna put a lot of the squishies close to one or both of the corrupted wyverns, really. Or I guess one or both of the closest ones. The one in the very top right isn't immediately consequential. I think I'm trying to figure out who can cover what on the left there, too. Because a lot of my team's not really on that side. And I guess I decided I just didn't want to deal with the Griffin evasion over there. And it made me really glad that I saved the Houses Unite. That way it was just a sure kill for one action when we're very short on actions trying to cover all these summons. So I did the decoy there just in case no one's able to do that last little bit of damage to the Wyvern. I guess that's just really a common theme in general. Oh yes, and the old have Louis hurt himself using Piercing Glare so that we can have people get 2 extra movement through counter. That's coming back. There, that came back. So Saline picks up the kill there. It was not guaranteed, but I guess 87 is still pretty good. It's just I wasn't taking chances. There's no reason to risk throwing away what's going on a 2-hour run at this point. On an 87 listed hit. It's funny, because at this point, Nil himself is not super threatening. But boy, there's still a lot of reinforcements. And they're generally about as dangerous as they've always been. The biggest issue is that they just have the water to free approach or get to just spawn in on top of us. And sure, they aren't ambush spawns, but when they're big flying debuffers with true damage, it's kind of scary. And on top of that, the little Wyverns always have enough avoid where basically it comes down to maybe Yunaka and Kwoe having 100% on them, but that's even still not always true for them. And really, that was kind of the biggest annoyance, I'd say, across all the queries of Xenologue. Is trying to deal with enemy flyer avoid without having any engrave access. It's kind of terrible, not gonna lie. Oh yeah, so here I'm sitting there and just being kind of annoyed with Nil. Because that arc of his AoE makes it so that I can't position Dusky adjacent to the bush. I really want to start damaging him at this point. But the bushes are the only places that we can attack him from, because I let him pick up Sandstorm, so if he counterattacks and procs Sandstorm, most units just die. I think Louis could survive it if it was just one Sandstorm. But I don't think there's really any way he could have done damage anyway. We didn't get the Venomous. Or wait, actually no, I think we did. But I don't think I was willing to commit him to attacking Nil and potentially taking so much damage when we still had all these reinforcements to deal with. So instead I'm basically keeping him at the south end of the platform. And since he didn't have anything better to do on that particular turn, we used Piercing Glare so he could be an engage battery for Greg. Also, it's not shown there, but the laser can proc Sandstorm, and I'm fairly certain it just works as normal, except you don't get to use your defense, so I think most, if not everyone, would just die to it. So I think I do upwards of 60 or so damage that ignores the fence. I guess there are emblem abilities and say Veil who could reduce it by a significant amount. I guess Madeline's personal technically reduces it by a little bit too. Divinely Inspiring can give us exactly 1 damage reduction. Yeah, so at this point, I did what I did with the Queer with Deaths, where I turned the animations back on so we could see Yunaka attacking.
Do you miss your...
The idea here is we're taking advantage of Chrom's surprise attack, where as long as we're attacking from an avoid bonus, then the enemy doesn't get to counterattack. So we basically completely negate Sandstorm as long as Yunaka is the only one fighting him. And then, of course, we're using daggers with Divinely Inspiring to stack up the damage, so eventually we're going to push it up to 8 damage per hit, and the card just barely is light enough for Yunaka to double with it. And it happens to be a crit weapon, albeit a not very good crit weapon. But it has bonus crit, and it stacks with her Train to Kill. Unfortunately, Fugato's crit reduction kind of bites us in the ass a little bit there. Because Yunaka is the only one engaging him. He's constantly getting that 10 extra dodge. So unfortunately our crit rate isn't as high as it could be. But there was no way I was going to be able to afford to inherit surprise attack on someone else. It's like 3000 SP. Which would have been, I want to say, probably about a third of what we got from the well on the way over to this.
That's enough from you.
So definitely not worth the SP. I guess thankfully Crom also comes with brute force, so crits do times 4, so at least when we do crit, Yunaka does do more. Which, incidentally, can also be Golden Lotus, because we let him kill Alfred. But there's no way this team could have spared the resources to burn down Alfred. With Hector, he basically takes no physical damage, and then committing that many mages to it, especially without having Cetl or Byleth, it was just not something I was willing to consider. So since Chloe was one turn behind here on reaching the energy pool, she has to retreat. If she had been able to fill her engage back up, like she basically can take on those southern reinforcement waves on her own. Because fail not with Cantor is kind of silly. Okay, so yeah, Yunaka there demonstrating how much of a pain Golden Lotus can be. Since we're getting a very slow start to actually burning Nil down here. But of course I knew with planning this out, that would be a problem. Or I guess could and probably would, because Nil does have 39 decks. And that's why the first thing I did was look into what I could do with setting up the Krobin Abuse here. Or just surprise attacking. I would have preferred to use a different killer weapon because, again, Card is a really bad killer weapon, but as it turns out, we actually don't get any killing edges with this roster. Because Lapis and Diamant and Kagetsu all join after Chapter 7. Or I guess during or after. And Etier was way too slow for the killer bow to work with her. Like, 15 speed is just not salvageable for trying to double Nil. On top of, I would have had to find some way to apply poison several times. And I guess if I'm being fair to her too, if say we just like recruited Elchris and his crew, I don't think Elchris would have been terribly practical to try to kill her bow Nil either. Even with if I had managed to do some kind of poison setup for him too. Since the only reason he was as good a Nil killer the first time is because he was able to stack his personal crit with the killer bow to try to leverage the lunar brace damage and turn that into huge damage. Which unfortunately, no Erica here because we're not nearly far enough in the game doing Xenologue this early. So I was definitely feeling the burn, missing Byleth, missing Corrin, missing Erica. I guess you could say surprisingly not missing Lucina as much, but mostly because with fixed stats like this, Bonded Shield ends up being more difficult to actually put into practice. So something like Soren Flare ends up being way better.
You're dead.
And stuff, I guess being able to assign decoy onto our Hector user. Particularly since assign decoy with quick riposte is kind of a nasty combo. You don't quite get anything like that if you were to say assign decoy onto an Ike user. Unless that Ike user is also inherited quick riposte, but yeah, 2000 SP inheritance. And, oddly enough, killer lances and axes, even if you have every single possible character recruited, are completely absent. So it's like IS purposefully made sure that any axe users on the team would not have access to a killer weapon, which is kind of mean. Because let's be honest, outside of leveraging poison, I don't think the Sword Masters are doing a whole lot with this killing edges to nil. Oh, I guess I should mention that technically Frem engaged would be able to damage nil if she took damage from, well, basically anything, any other source, and leveraged the staff that starts with an H. I'm not gonna try to pronounce it, but the staff that can't be countered with reprisal. She could do damage there. Although at that point, I'd probably just want to contract on Yunaka to gamble on more card crits.
Sort of like that, maybe?
So you can kind of see these AoEs slowing us down a bunch more here too. Because regular Cantor isn't enough to attack and get out. So we lose a turn of damage here. When it's already fairly slow going after nil. But there's no possible way to have Cantor Plus at this point in the game, so just have to deal with it. This is fairly far along. Is that? I think that might be the last. No, that's second last.
I'm ready for more orders.
Yeah, that's the second last set of Corrupted Wyverns. So that's another annoyance. In addition to having to step out of the AoE a lot, we also have to babysit these corners for against the two Corrupted Wyverns that spawn every few turns. As you can see, I'm not quite far enough up into that northeast section, so he's not really aiming to attack that wyvern. I guess if I'd left the silver gauntlets on, or silver arts on Jean, he maybe could have killed. I'm not really sure because he's kind of slow, and I think silver art would have wailed him down a bunch. I guess these wyverns only have like 6 speed, so he might have been okay. But I'm not really sure. I guess it's kind of funny. I ended up not using the silver arts on Dusky, even though in the past, during attempts and labbing, I did use it to try to just manually force an engage recharge. But I think for the most part, with this, movement became so optimized for me in the early turns when it would have been really nice to get that engage back that she just never had a spare turn. She was always doing something. And the thing is, the silver arts, especially with these fixed stats, are just not gonna do damage for the most part. Like, Fram was only the exception because she was leveraging Reprisal. So we're basically just dealing with having to be attacked by the wyvern here. Positioning the healers around, because if someone does get hit, we need to be restoring them. Oh yeah, by the way, 95 hit rate, but because it's not 100, we got to see it miss there. And the first hit got Golden Lotus, so you can kind of tell the game's just trying to troll at this point. We haven't even taken away 1 hit point, or 1 health bar.
I will not forget your loss.
So, Saline leveraging that combat there to get a Silica refill. It ends up not being strictly necessary. I wanted to have the engages ready as much as I could so that if somehow I misstepped and we got some summons to slip through or weren't able to get the reinforcements under control within a couple turns of them spawning through normal attacks, we could just throw out the engages to get rid of them. But this is fairly patternistic here, so the summons generally aren't hard to block. Oh yeah, I must have been thinking of a different turn on, or attack on the previous turn, because we missed there, and I'm pretty sure we only missed once, so I think we got double Golden Lotus on the previous one. But yeah, this is fairly predictable because it goes south and then northwest, northeast, and he just keeps doing that. The kill zone will rotate around. I think it follows whatever the game thinks will be the most dangerous situation for whoever is near the edges. Which means if they're really close to the edge, then obviously it'll just be trying to target as many characters that are in the zone as possible, but I'm not sure what he does as a tiebreaker if we're just all sitting on the edge of the kill zone. It might be that it just flips a coin and chooses randomly between the two. Or maybe it's the highest unit count, I don't know. I just know it seems to end up a little bit erratic. So now that Chloe's bringing Engage to the southern reinforcements, she can basically hunker down and get ready to take them on herself, although it is nice to kill them faster if we can. And then the attempt with deaths, we just basically left it up to Chloe, but... And positioning is kind of convenient here just to make it a team effort, so... Again, here, the AoE laser just edging us out of being able to attack and move away with figure or canter. I guess this is one of those situations where if I was really concerned, I could have used the Silver Arts to refill Camilla. Or, I guess it was just enough with the Liberation. Oh yeah, because, yeah, the Liberation bonus for the kill was just enough that I didn't need the Silver Art. I don't think I was actually considering that when I did the Liberation kill, though. Because I mostly just wanted to be rid of the Liberation. We're at a point in the run where I guess the extra movement would be nice if we needed it. But using Dark Inferno to try to clear stuff would probably be extremely messy. Because the fire would probably get in the way of my own troops. So here I'm moving Jean and Fram back over, even though we kind of want people to be south for the most part. Because we don't want Dusky and or Yunaka. Or I guess it can't be an and because there's only one Corrupted Wyvern, but we really don't want one of them just being stuck and frozen and wasting a turn. Because again, our damage output has been kind of pitiful at this point. And there are a couple turns in between. There's a rest turn and then the kill zone turn before he starts summoning again. You may all have noticed that Celestia is just constantly killing the Wyverns here whenever she can. Because she gets a one-shot, and it's basically the only thing she has 100% hit rate on.
Time to finish the job.
So it's just really convenient for her to do it. And we unfortunately waste that crit there. On the whole 8 damage, so even if he had doubled Golden Lotus, we would have taken the health bar, so it's the game trolling yet again.
You never had a chance.
Hey Kron, it's never wasted. But it could have been better. If only we'd had it on the next health bar. Yeah, basically we're setting Louis up to decoy that Wyvern again. Because we want Koi to off the corrupted Wyvern. There's no reason to spend extra turns there. Yeah, I record this without my voiceover. Well, because this was me labbing stuff out and practicing, right? So, this was just me taking the opportunity. Excuse me, taking the opportunity when I saw that the strategy was as successful as it was.
Did you see that?
And this technically wouldn't be the first time something like that has happened. Yeah, this was off stream when I was labbing on Saturday, or a couple Saturdays ago at this point.
I've had my eye on you. You never had a
Because the original intention was to do this on stream with a new strategy after we were done the campaign. But because I had successful clears of other things, like the Sodom kill in PSO2, I knew better than to just not be recording. So I had OBS on and was running it while I was doing my labbing. Especially since I was fairly confident that that if I could get the proof of concept for killing Ivy more easily in the center, there was a good chance I could convert it into an actual finish. Plus, even if that were to fail, it helps to have the footage to look back on. So either way, it was win-win just to do it like that. I just had to be mindful of the state of my hard drive. Because there were a lot of dud recordings that didn't have the new strategy. Or I guess adjusted strategy. A lot of the base of what I did for my run with deaths was carried forward. This is a good idea, indeed. Like I said, it was something I learned from back when I was recording other stuff, so... we end up with a similar finish at the end anyway, where Ryunaka is doing card things and stabbing Nil over and over and over. We unfortunately get a lot less crits here, so this probably could have been like 10 minutes shorter if we'd just gotten the crit at the end of his first health bar on the second health bar, and then maybe 1 or 2 more crits somewhere in there. Impressive run. Thanks, Fables. I was definitely quite excited once I saw how well the strategy worked, once I could finally get Celestia and Greg to stop missing stuff at the start. Which is sad, considering, like, they still had 86 and 93 for hit rates. Like, come on. It's like, I guess the curse of having to use the 4 winds. Or at least the 4 wins when they're not allowed to use supports or engraves. Because I guess as we proved, that they behave quite similar to other units in the main campaign. When they're not when they're not denied all resources. Because, you know, it also kind of helps to not have to be stuck with the Bond level 1 emblem, or I guess no emblem at all. Like, poor Nell just sits in the corner with no emblem here.
Look what you made me do.
Yeah, get them in the main game and they're good. Because again, you can compensate for their shortcomings. I'd almost say Madeline benefits the most, really. Because her dex is such an issue here, but Lyn Engrave does a lot for her. So at this point, we've run out of reinforcements. Like, the northwest ones on turn 31 were the last, so at this point, it's just a matter of not screwing up the rotation and getting Yunaka to stabby stab and hope for crits. Madeline shows how good raw strength and defense can be. Hey, Louis did it first, right? Alright, so there's 2 health bars down. I'm actually not sure how fast we burn them down in the run with deaths. In terms of, like, versus what turn it was on the map. I want to say 2 to 3 turns ahead, if only because I'm pretty sure we got like 3 crits very early on. You never took Louis further than 11 or so. Yeah, basically Madeline is slightly more min-maxed. I think she has less speed and dex. Or more defense and more strength. But Louis is basically Lance Madeline. You're very surprised that you're still on your 3rd run. I wonder if it might have to do with also dedicating days to another Fire Emblem that involves additional round objects. Impossible. Yes, surely impossible. Oh yeah, so here we actually get an AoE, that's nice. Where we can attack and then counter out of range. I think this is the only time he gives us this AoE. Whereas I'm reasonably sure... Oh, I guess I didn't attack there. Why didn't I attack? I guess I must have just been like fast menuing and not paying attention. Also May stuff. You were wondering if I manipulate the attack. I hadn't had long enough to lab against Nil himself. So I'm not really sure what provokes him to do AoEs in a certain direction. I guess it would probably be the placement of units, but it feels like it's fairly inconsistent, so I'm not entirely sure. It's something where I'd have to do a lot of labbing. Oh, you're wondering if you can manipulate it. It probably can, it's just... It feels kind of finicky, so if someone were to do that, you'd probably have to be very precise. I'm not sure if it'd be completely practical to dedicate too much resources to it too, because there's a lot of running around the platform trying to block stuff.
Look what you made me do. Another kill for me.
Oh, there we go. That was a really fast third hit point health bar. Like targeting a Lear in particular. It might be, yeah, that might be the case. Physic for extra movement again. I still find it, even though I've done as many runs as I have, I still find it funny that the game allows us to do that. Of course, we don't have throwaway obstruct staves in Xenologue, but when are we gonna end up using 40 physic uses on a map that gets this intense on pacing? Piercing Glare is a fun adaptation. Yes. Yeah, it's funny how abusable it is. Because you can use it for extra counter movement, and you can use it as an engage battery. Or I suppose just bog standard in in the main campaign, bog standard, spam it so you can use men's to farm experience. Although I think at that point we're starting to get into Three Houses Bush strats, so take of that what you will. Celica recover farming, yes. Yeah, you could loop that endlessly with Celica. Because you could recover, and then you could pull out... Oh, there's a sandstorm laser. This is why we don't stand in the laser. Aside from it also one-shotting a number of the characters, even without sandstorm. But you could do that, and then you could use men's or heals to get your engage back up, and then do more recovering. Don't even need Makai, just Celica looping forever on Hector. And Rafal, you can get your engage back hit with no resources. This is true. But using staves to get yourself back up does have the advantage of giving you experience at the same time. Although I suppose at some point it's just going to become almost zero to be doing heals and mends. But until that point, it's fully abusable. Still got a few more cycles to go before he's down, but again, we're at the point where it's just don't throw. If you know like accidentally dies, it's just over. Not quite, but it would definitely be. I mean, yeah, it would be over in terms of the Deathless would be gone, but actually finishing and just something I'd probably do out of spite if I accidentally threw it is as long as Fram's alive. There's still one other source of uncounterable damage. Yeah, brought Tiki. The Revival Stone's on Koei, but I never actually ended up using a Revival Stone. Yeah, Tiki was on Madeline because Madeline wasn't going to contribute otherwise. And the armor Ice Breath is pretty nice, truth be told. Especially when we don't have Corrin, so our options for crowd control are Armored Tiki for Ice Breath and charging up Book of Worlds. Which, to be fair to Book of Worlds, was very clutch in setting up a lot of stuff. Like, the freeze locked out Saline so we could push onto the platform more aggressively. Locked down Diamant so we could deal with him later. Locked Ivy in place so that she and Hortensia would guaranteed die. Hi Tyler. Book of Worlds is every turn you wait, it adds an effect to it. So the first effect, which is probably its most useful, honestly, is a freeze effect. So it's basically bog standard freeze, but you don't have to hit. So you can do something like Thoron or longbow shots with it, and it'll freeze the target. The second one is fire, so it just lights the tile on fire, which can be helpful, but it can also backfire if it blocks movement. So I'm kind of lukewarm on how useful the second page can be at times. Third page is Death, which is basically just like Fate's Poison Strike. And then if you charge it for 4, it's a self-heal using the damage you dealt. And if you fully charge it to 5, it turns that heal into an AoE heal. Which it sometimes comes in handy, but I feel like 4 and 5 are mostly superfluous. So really just, you can do some really silly stuff if you've got multiple Book of Worlds and alternate who's waiting so you can just freeze something forever. That's something I did in Xeno 3 when we were fighting Diamant, and I needed to deal with the other stuff first. So we just had characters, we had Saline, and actually, I can't remember who else. So Saline and someone else were just alternating freezing Diamant. Yeah, Book of Worlds can probably be credited to killing three of the enemy royals here. Because Ivy, Hortensia, and Diamant just basically got turned into sitting ducks by it, really. Arguably Saline too. Oh, look, another crit at 8 health. Game do be trolling. But hey, down to his last health bar. And his summons just got blocked. It looks like I remembered to actually take advantage of this one this time. Make him suffer. He'll have 1,000 years for that. We don't talk about those 1,000 years. Yeah, I suppose so. There's some really weird shenanigans going on for sure. All we get is I hold your hand and prayed. It comes up a little bit more in the supports too. I can't remember who he gets into more detail with. It might be even just like a Lear's bit. But yeah, he has like a bit where he talks about how he feared she might never awake and stuff like that. So he gets a little bit into his feelings, but it is still fairly bare bones overall. And I think, to be fair to him, like having all of that restricted to only supports, it kind of hurts how much they can develop it. To rough all feelings. I know it seems like sounds like something ludicrous, but he has them. He actually is actually pretty cool. Yeah, with how his supports play out, like that's why I ended up giving him the pact ring. Like it really does show true development and whatnot. That reminds you? Oh, what does it remind you of? Checks points. Ah. Oh no, Boucheron. Yeah. Poor Boucheron. Boucheron slander will continue. I guess for now. At some point, we're gonna have to use him, though. I actually might still extend out the chance to buy him in, too. Because I didn't give too much warning on this. It was like a 5-day set of challenges. So I may extend it out to Friday. Ventron. No, the run is actually over. We killed Sombron like 2 hours into the session. We kind of just rolled straight over the final map. Yeah, Mage Knight Nell is just a death cannon. Okay. So at this point, I was trying to math all this out. I wanted to get a Yunaka finisher. Just like with the previous Claire. Game's really easy when you know what you're doing. Yeah, it is significantly easier. Plus, also, coming in with all the DLC experience is maybe a little bit much. Plus, all my Xenologue inheritance made for some interesting stuff too. Because I had speed res +3 too, so my Alir was always kind of ahead of the enemy speed curve. Still though, yeah, I actually didn't double anything for some the fastest things for the most part.
And tremble in fear, Celestia. This
Oh yeah,
is the
so
might of a true dragon.
Lord Nil, as a fellow dragon, I must admit that form is impressive. But while you won't require anyone's help this way, you will come to feel isolated in time. Having no one by your side is not as liberating as you might think. You can still reconsider.
I feel nothing of the sort. Perhaps it is you who is lonely, for want of your lost wind. I will gladly send you after him.
Mavir, you fool. I was willing to die there with you. But still, thank you. I'll use this gift well. It's because of what you did that I have the will to face you. You won't take anything else.
yeah, dialogue.
I must end you.
So I was doing this, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess we never did this, so I let it play out. Because in all the other queries, Celestia just kind of didn't do stuff.
My apologies.
So remember when I said I was trying to set up a Yunaka kill? I mathed it out there, and then I forgot that Saline might proc Ignis, and so she stole the kill.
This cannot be. Father. Father.
Although I guess one other humorous note is that, for the I don't know if you all know this, but with those multi-hit emblem attacks, Golden Lotus can proc individually on each hit. So he was doing that to Chloe and Celestia there. Yeah, Ignis snipe. Alright, so yeah, that's the queer, so hopefully you all enjoyed that, even though it got kinda long. Inevitably, because that map's just long, full stop. Thanks for the GG. So yeah, that's all I got for tonight. So I'm going to leave that there, and we will start the next run tomorrow with Jade and Lapis. I might just like give Bergeron some nominal experience in case he actually makes his points by Friday. And then if he does make it in, then I'll become a Boucheron, Lapis, and Jade run. But yeah, we'll start the next run tomorrow. And continue that through Friday and Sunday and Monday. I might start setting aside Wednesdays again for Dragon Quest, because we got so far into that and just let the story hang, so feel guilty about not finishing that off, so chances are we'll start dedicating Wednesdays towards other things for a bit, but yeah, other days will still be engaged with this new run, so yeah, don't see anyone else doing any Fire Realm, so at least on my list, so I guess we're just done. Um, I assume since you're hanging out in my chat, Kron, you're probably not starting anything, so. Anyhow, thanks for watching, everyone. Hope to see you tomorrow. Have yourselves a good night.